Hi everyone, I'm Ryan. Welcome back to my garage. So this is the engine that I want to rebuild and have running as well as possible to be placed into this Honda SuperDream. To my surprise, when I did a compression test on this old engine that I believe to be worn out, I got a higher compression ratio than when I tested this set of heads that I believed to be of a much lower mileage. So in trying to understand why I was getting a lower compression reading from this set of heads, I've of course looked at the valves, the pistons, the piston rings, and I did find that I had a broken piston ring. So this little piece here had snapped off. No problem, I think. I will simply order up and change the piston rings. That's where I set off down a huge rabbit hole that I've struggled to get out of. Let me explain. So this head has never been rebored to the best of my knowledge. There's no signs on the pistons suggesting they're oversized. So I am confident it is fair to assume these are standard size pistons, standard size rings and a standard head. When I tried measuring the standard piston rings that I had in the head, and I was looking at the gap in here, in measuring the gap, I can just about fit a 0.5 millimetre 0.5mm feeler gauge in the gap. Now 0.5 millimetre is too large, and checking the book here, it tells me that it should be 0.1 to 0.3 mil, and 0.5 mil is beyond the service limit. So without doubt, these are too loose. There's too much air, gas escaping past the rings, which is causing me to lose some compression. I know that needs addressing, and I know that the proper, correct, professional way of doing this is to have them rebored out to a larger size, new pistons, new piston rings, job done. But I've spoken to a couple of engineering companies, and the cost of having these bored out is about £300. Plus I've got to get them there, and I've also got to buy the pistons and the piston rings. I'm looking at a cost of about £350 to get the compression back up to where I believe it should be. And with the best will in the world, £350 on a very old, mediocre SuperDream is not the sort of money I was looking to put into it. It's never going to show me a financial return. I'm not looking to sell it. I just want it to run well. So, before I committed to that, I needed to know, do I need the rebore, or can I get away with just fitting a new set of standard size piston rings? That was where I was at. Spend £350 or maybe get away with standard piston rings. And in order to answer that, I needed to know whether the cylinder itself was worn beyond 60.1 millimetres. That's what the book tells me is the limit. So I needed to measure to within 1/10 of a millimetre the size of this. And I failed. This is why I failed. So I've begun with a digital vernier gauge. And, you know, I have this, it works. However, it is only a cheapie, and it is only accurate to 1/10 of a millimetre. So immediately, even if this worked perfectly, it's not accurate enough to tell me, you know, if it rounds up to 60.1 mil, that implies it's over the service limit, whereas actually it might have been 60.06, which would have been within. So I went and bought myself a better gauge. So having gone on the internet, searched around, I bought myself a stainless steel hardened gauge, accurate to within 1/100th of a millimetre. It is absolute garbage. So I did give feedback to the seller, but to be honest, it was so cheap I couldn't even be bothered to send it back. So there's a lesson in life. If something appears to be a high quality, accurate tool for less than £10, it's not. What I found with this thing is if I repeatedly measure the same fixed, known, hard, immovable object, I get different readings every single time I try measuring it. So no matter what gauge I tried and how I tried measuring it, thinking I could just simply put that in there, I'm getting a reading of 62mm, which makes no sense at all. Well, it does make sense if you consider that actually the base of this is slightly tapered, but it's the actual size down inside the bore that I need to measure, and I can't. So that is junk. That basically works, but neither of them are telling me whether this is within or outside of its service limit or not. So I was stuck. Do I order standard piston rings, which are going to cost me 40 odd quid, to put them in, to try measuring the gap, to possibly then find that that's not good enough? Or do I bite the bullet, buy the oversized kit, send them away, have them engineered, and see, and that's going to solve the problem? And I was stuck in that quandary, and I have been debating this in my head backwards and forwards now for a couple of weeks. And then I've come up with a plan, and I'm sure this is not what you're meant to do. I'm sure the engineers are going to go ballistic at me. But with my limited knowledge, limited tools, limited skills, what I have done is a compromise. I have bought myself a set of oversized pistons and piston rings. Now let me explain my logic here. Firstly, buying a set that included both the pistons and the rings was cheaper than buying the rings alone. So I'm sure these are aftermarket, they're not original Hondas, but that was cheaper than just buying a set of rings. So that's why I bought the pistons as well. I know these pistons are not going to fit. They just simply won't. They are too big. They're not going to fit into that standard cylinder. But it's the rings I'm after. What I am intending to do is to take the rings, which are 0.25 millimeters larger than standard. I'm going to try them in my head. Now, my logic here is this 0.25 is across the entire width of the cylinder. So these piston rings must be almost identical to the standard ones, with a very, very slightly wider diameter and a very, very, very slightly longer length. I'm going to try these and see what gap I get. If this gap is within the service limits of what I'm expecting, I'm going to try oversized rings on a standard piston. And that's probably not advisable, but I can't for the life of me think for a reason why that shouldn't work. What is critical is that the rings are not too big. So there must be a gap to allow for expansion. But as long as these fit in and there is a gap, I can't think of a reason I can't use them. If there's no gap, I could file them down. So let's take this one step at a time. Let's get one of these unpackaged. Let's get the rings out. Let's test them in the bore. And just see what I'm playing with. Because in my head, if I can get a better seal with oversized rings alone, I've resolved my problem to a satisfaction that I'm happy with for the cost of less than 50 quid. Right, let's get measuring. Okay, so first experiment. I've taken the oversized rings and the oversized piston, and I've tried just offering the rings into the bore, and I don't know if you can see that little tiny overlap there. So the rings go in the bore, but they do not fit. They are too long, and there is currently an overlap. I can't quite get that flat, and this is at the very top of the opening. So that immediately tells me what I expected to find is that, yeah, the rings are too big. Well, no surprise there. That's exactly what you would have guessed. But look at this. This is interesting. So this is the oversized piston, which somewhere on here, if you can, it's stamped 0.25. I don't know if you can pick that up, but it is. And if you take this and you just try and offer it into the cylinder, look, it initially goes in fine. It goes down to the level of where the gudgeon pin is, and then of course it hits, which makes perfect sense, quite frankly. So it does not fit, and you get exactly the same on both sides. So this tells me that there's some other uneven wear on this, where the top is wider than the centre. So I need to make sure that my rings fit with the correct gap when down in here in the centre of the bore. So, having looked at this, having given this thought, I'm at the point of commitment. Either I stop and I just go, no, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to spend the 300 quid and get these bored out. Or I now start trying to very carefully file down the rings so that they give me the correct gap. I've got right to this point and now I'm hesitating. Let me get a cup of tea, then make a decision. Okay, so I paused for a minute, got myself a cuppa, thought about it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead. Worst ways, I'm going to destroy a set of rings that if I go ahead with a rebore, I'm going to have to replace. Even if I scratch the cylinder itself, the rebore should deal with that. So I'm going to try this. I know it's an experiment. I know that you're going to say it's not the right thing to do. Humour me. Let me just see what happens here. Just to repeat, I am not a mechanic. I know nothing about what I'm doing. I'm just trying to apply logic to a situation, and I'm probably going to get it wrong. Do not copy this. But there we go. Oversized pistons in a standard piston, oversized piston rings in standard piston in a standard bore. Let's just start. I've got this. Let me just try deglazing and just putting some cross hatches back on the cylinder wall first, because it's going to take a moment. Let's try then filing down some rings. Okay, so you can see that cross hatching runs nice and evenly all the way up the bore on both sides. think that's what I needed. Right, they're as prepared as they're going to be. Let's get some piston rings. So this is my plan. I'm going to take the oversized rings and a very small, fine, flat foil, and I'm just going to carefully file down the end and keep testing it in the narrow point until I get the gap of 0.2 mil. That is in the middle of what the book says the tolerance should be. I think if the gap is too small and it tries to expand further, it could seize and it could break. And I think as long as it's on the slightly safe side, I should be all right. So yeah, 0.2 mil gap, go. This is going to take me some time.
I've got that gap there. If I take this feeler gauge, I can just about feel friction as that is sliding through that gap. And that is 0.2 of a mil. And that has just taken just a few minutes. Actually really wasn't difficult at all. Right, let me try and get some others now and get the same sort of gap on there. That's yeah, okay, promising start. First one I've tried, and yeah, not too bad. So just showing you a progress report a few hours in. That is both original pistons back in, but with the larger O-rings that I filed down. So that's coming back together. Getting them in, it wasn't particularly difficult. It's a nice snug fit, definitely. And I could feel that as I was trying to put the cylinder head down into place. So yeah, she's snug, but then I do think it should be snug. Okay, right. That is... Okay, so next step, continue upwards. So the heads, so the cylinder's about ready to take the heads. That's all prepped up, and in the meantime I've had fuel sitting in the heads for, I don't know, 15 minutes now. It's not draining through and everything's bone dry in both inlet and exhausts. So no seepage at all. The valves, they are sealed. Cool, right. I just wanted to just reassure myself that there wasn't a problem at the top end, and I don't believe there is. Right, she's mechanically timed up, TDC, upright, lines parallel to the case. Put some oil on the crank, just so it's not dry when it starts up. And let's carry on, get the valves all back on. There she is, all reassembled, ready to be dropped in and tested. I've done all the valves, everything's torqued up, I've replaced all the gaskets, everything I can think to do I have done, and it feels tight. When I'm turning it by hand, you can hear it creating some, sucking some air, making all the right noises. So next step is I've got to drop that engine out from there, and I'm getting tired. I've really taken my time today, done it slowly, but it's getting late. So next step, drop that, then install that one, and then compression test it, and pray I get a reasonable reading, because if I've done all that and I don't, I am going to be a little disappointed. But there we go. Right, okay. I'm going to pause here for now, probably get a bite to eat, and then carry on at the next opportunity. And we will find out if my efforts have been successful or not together. Okay, I pushed on. I've got the engine out. There's the old one. So she's ready to accept the engine. That's sat here. I'm just letting all the sealant harden off overnight. So I think that tomorrow I'm going to get that in the frame, put some oil in it, and then start giving it a test. But that is all for tonight. And I'm knackered. Right, okay. Second for you, a day for me. And I'm back. Right, I finished work for the day and I've come in here and I've just thrown the engine in. So that is hung, all the engine mounts are all bolted up. So there's nothing done. The only thing I've connected from a physical perspective is the oil pressure sender. So I am hoping if I turn the key on, I'm going to get an indication of no oil pressure. Come on. Yes. Good. Right, lights will go off. Okay, good. So let's put some oil in it and let's see if it turns over on the key. Should do, on the button even. Yeah, should do. Right, get some oil. Okay, so I've slightly messed up. I've got 2 litres of fuel and it actually needs at least 2.2. So I'm certainly not going to run it. But you will notice there's no spark plugs. There's no electrics connected. I mean, literally there's nothing. So there's not even the carbs connected. So it's not going to run. I just want to know, to begin with, does it turn over? Does it sound okay? Does the starter motor still work? Right, okay, so we got oil pressure light. Come on. Please be good to me. Okay. Well, it's turning over. No immediate bangs or thuds. Okay. Now I'm not getting the oil pressure light going out yet, but it's completely, you know, it's new filter, 2 litres of oil. So I think I just need to just give it a little bit of time, be patient, keep running it for short periods of time. Oh, yay. Okay. Good, good. So let's do that a few more times. Good. Okay, we got oil pressure. I'm going to do that a couple more times and then we'll try a compression test, shall we? Please, please, please be good to me. Okay. There we go. Come on, fingers crossed. Compression test time. 135. Okay. Okay, not bad. That's stone cold and hasn't been bedded in. Right, let's check the other side. And the right hand side. One 35 again. Okay. Okay, right. I think we've got a reasonable baseline. Let me continue to assemble things. I don't think I can run it today because I think I need more oil, which is a bit foolish. In fact, you know what? I'm going to call it there. It's getting late. I don't have enough oil to run it. I think the next stage is actually connect the carbs up, connect the electrics up, and then go for the first fire up. That will do for this upload. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your ongoing support and help and guidance. Let's see if these oversized rings in this piston does or doesn't successfully run once it's actually got warmed up, because I think that will be the actual final test. All right, bye for now.